The double dose of bagpipes means only one thing. It is time for DERFCAST number 22. Welcome. And today's show, we're going to get right into it. And I want to clear up a little bit of controversy. I was supposed to have Howard Meehan, but due to technical difficulties, Howard cannot make it, and neither can his brother Michael. So today's guest, who I got a hold of at the last minute, and he is gracefully, is that a word? Am I pronouncing that right? Gracefully, said he'd come on for part 3 of our pro wrestling banter, Mr. Tino Anglade. And while I'm waiting for him to call, I want to run down a couple things that have come up here on DERFCAST. I should begin each program with how to get a hold of me. My page on Facebook is under Fred L. Lazarus. That's Lazarus. And DERFCAST has its own page on Facebook called DERFCAST. Just type it in, DERFCAST. And you can do that on Facebook, and it comes right up. In the next coming weeks, 2 of my guests, one of them I am going through financial... Anyway, I am trying to get Sabrina Cañada back on. And, oh, there it is. Let us welcome Tino Anglade. And here we go. Let's start the show. Tino, is that you?
Yes, Fred, it's me. How you doing?
I am doing great. And before we start the show, I have something that I recorded for you and you only. So here you go. Dig this.
Every year, I bet you say, next year I'm going to the Battle Royal. Well, next year is now. Today, Friday, here at the Olympic Auditorium. That's right, because it's Battle Royal night. The prices, $7.50, $5, $212, $2.50. Call now. Make your reservation. Richmond 9-5171. That's Richmond 9-5171. Yes, Friday night.
Yes, I had to just record that little bit for you.
Thank you so much. Hearing Jeff Walton's voice just takes me back to, a really cool time, enjoying, quality wrestling. Richmond 9-5171. It's funny, I still will go by, if I'm downtown LA, I'll drive by the Olympic just to remember, the old times. The Olympic hasn't changed. It looks exactly like it did when LaBelle ran his promotion there. The only difference is church now. It's painted different.
Wow. You're so lucky. When I was down in L.A., I had scheduled some time to actually go have coffee with Mr. Rock Rims, wrestling historian,
right,
and drive by the Olympic, and it just didn't work out. I was really sad for those 2 things. But, wow, you're so lucky. I mean, here in the Bay Area, we have the Cow Palace. It's still exactly the same as it's always been.
Wow.
And that's about it. The Civic Center, although wrestling was there in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, up to the 60s, that's still the same, but it's now called the Billy Graham Civic Center. But, wow, the Olympic Auditorium, I hope before I croak I get to see that.
Oh, no, I don't think it's going anywhere. It's been there, since I guess the Olympics in, when was it, the 30s, I guess?
Wow, yeah, that's what it was built for. If you can give your own spiel on the history, I'll point out Eileen Eaton, Gene LaBelle, Mike LaBelle. People don't realize how hollowed and how historic that arena really is.
Yeah, it was Eileen Eaton. Apparently, I'm not sure the facts on it. Rock Rims would know better, but I believe that Eileen Eaton and her husband, Carl Eaton, leased it from the city of Los Angeles. So the ownership, I think, was really the city, and they leased it to run their business out of it, and it was a very lucrative business. They actually made their most money on pro wrestling, believe it or not.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, they had bi-weekly cards, Wednesdays and Fridays, or was it Saturdays?
I think almost every day of the week something was going on there. I think they had roller derby on...
Oh, that's right, and boxing. That's right.
Boxing, correct, and then they had pro wrestling on 2 nights as well. So it was a very, busy arena. It was constantly transformed to roller derby, back to wrestling and boxing. Neat place. It's just very iconic where the microphone would come down from the rafters.
Oh, definitely. And how many movies, did they use Jimmy Lennon?
Countless. I remember as a kid I would watch like The $6 Million Man or The Bionic Woman, and they would, episodes were shot at the Olympics. It was just so cool because I just loved watching the corridors and the cameras move around and showing areas that, as a fan you didn't really get to see. So yeah, it was really neat when I'd watch, certain TV shows, or movies where it was used, like in the Rocky movie.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. And, the rest of the history, let me touch base about, the man that just, as soon as I hear the name Olympic Auditorium, I'm really, the two men that come to mind, Judo Gene LaBelle and Roddy Piper, of course, and then Chavo Guerrero. But I think, let's talk about Gene LaBelle for a bit. Well, what's your knowledge on Gene? Can you tell all of my, I'm up to 9 dedicated listeners, Tino. And since I've had you on DERFCAST, I've had 2 new listeners that are always on. Always, listen to the show. I want to thank you for that. I'm trying to get to 10. If I could get to 10, I'd die happy.
Well, that's the ones you know of.
Well, see, on SoundCloud.
You can see how many.
Yeah, and I do want to congratulate you. Our very first show that we did together got 45 people to listen to it.
Wow, that's tough because we're talking about Roddy Piper mostly.
Yeah. Well, with you too. But no, back to Gene LaBelle. Gene LaBelle, very, very famous in martial arts.
Judo Gene LaBelle. What I do know about him is a quote of Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper said he was the toughest man that he ever knew, the toughest man that ever lived. And Rod, if anybody knew about being a tough guy, it was Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
So for him to say that, people have said that about Danny Hodge, and
yes.
that's true. But from what I've understood is, with people that have worked out with Gene LaBelle, he is the toughest person that Roddy Piper's ever met.
Wait, are you familiar with the story with Bearcat Wright not relinquishing the...
Yeah, I am. And, again, it's folklore. It's legend because I got into wrestling, after that. So
right.
It's one of those legendary stories that Gene LaBelle was set to be the ref, so no funny business went on when he was supposed to drop the title. So I guess when he got to the ring and realized that that Gene LaBelle was reffing and going to make sure the title got dropped, that Bobcat just basically headed out, ran out of the building.
Well, I've kind of heard it different. I'm glad you're familiar with it. Maybe we could both come up with what happened. I heard that there was kind of like a semi-shoot between Bearcat Wright and Freddie Blassie. Wright was the champion at the time, and Mike LaBelle had decided to have Bearcat drop the title to Freddie Blassie. And Bearcat did. It ended up in a count-out. And so there was a rematch, and they sent Gene LaBelle to the ring at the last second under a mask as the masked Mr. X. And Bearcat came out of the dressing room, saw Mr. X, and all the wrestlers know who is who under a mask. You just know.
Of course.
Yeah, he saw it was LaBelle, and he knew what was going to happen. And he turned around, walked back into the dressing room, this is what I've heard, and dropped the title, or either took the title with him and mailed it back. Eventually, Mike LaBelle got the title back, but left. Just said, F this, I'm not going anywhere near the ring, because LaBelle would have hurt him. LaBelle just...
Very, very true, very much. And I don't know if you know the story about Gene and his pink gi, his judo gi. When he went to Japan for a judo competition, he was very well respected all over the world, or still is.
Oh, my God, yeah. Well, he brought judo to legitimacy by fighting a boxer, and the boxer supposedly had brass knuckles taped into his gloves, and Gene still took him down.
Wow. Well, apparently when he was in Japan, he washed his gi with something red in the washing machine. He came out pink.
Yeah.
So the nickname they gave him in Japan was the man in the pink gi. So that's another little bit of trivia I heard.
Oh yeah, if Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, Rowdy Piper, Wilhelm Ruska all give props up one downside the other to Gene LaBelle. That he has to be something. I mean, Chuck Norris even says he's the toughest man at one point in the world that's alive still. You know?
Yeah, no. I definitely would take those guys' word for it. And I know that Gene LaBelle was also the hangman, one of the hangmen.
Oh, definitely. It's funny. I mean, we've talked wrestling before, and I'm talking to Tino Anglade folks, all of my 9 listeners, and I'm going to keep plugging my 9 listeners until I get 10, then I'll stop. But I watch wrestling, on Wednesday nights from the Olympic, and ever so often they'd have the hangman. And if you remember this, maybe I'm making this up because when I was a kid I remember it this way, but the hangman would wrestle. And then about 30 minutes later, Gene LaBelle would be out to do an interview, and he'd be sweating. And I could never figure out why he was sweating so much, whether it's other weeks when he was doing the interviewing, he wasn't sweating. So it came to me a couple
you caught on right away, huh?
Yeah, it came to me that, hey, wait a minute, he's been wrestling, he's doing something,
Yeah, and that was all live TV. That 90 minutes was all live, Yeah.
Wow. Now, see, that I didn't know. Wow.
Wednesday night was all live, completely 100% live, yeah.
Well, Rock Rims, I had him on a year ago when I was at the studios of FCC Free Radio, which I'm not anymore, but he let me know that there was also live wrestling broadcast on the Spanish network on Fridays, that ever so often they would broadcast the matches on Friday if it was a sellout.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. I do know that early on in the 70s they did do Ernie Ladd sold out the Olympics, so they had to have a what they call closed circuit television.
Oh, really?
At another location.
God bless Ernie Ladd.
The closed circuit show was at the Orpheum Theater, which is still there. It's on Broadway in downtown Los Angeles. But they, it was like their overflow, and it was one time it was a main event with Ernie Ladd, and I can't think of, it was a Latino wrestler.
Raymond Torres?
Yes, it was probably Enrique Torres.
How did I know that?
Brothers.
Did I surprise you? Come on, give me some props here.
That's awesome. I met some of the Torres family several years ago when Mike Lano did his tribute to old school LA wrestling. He did it. It was about, I want to say, 3 years ago.
Wow.
Down at the it was a wrestling convention in January.
Yeah, is any, I've had my difficulties with Mike before, but no big deal. But so I've never bothered to really research his shows. Are any of these shows archived online anywhere?
There was footage of that one. Of that one gathering where it was the tribute to the Mike LaBelle promotion.
Right.
And I'm trying to think. Boom Boom.
Mancini?
No, Mahalik.
Gotcha. Art Boom Boom Mahalik.
Yeah, he was there with Gene LaBelle. Destroyer was there.
Jick Beyer.
Superstar Billy Graham was there.
Wow.
Jeff Walton, Scott Walton, his son, who wrote the book with him. Tony Rocco.
Yeah, he's a very underrated wrestler. That guy could do it all. He's up here occasionally.
It was interesting because at one time, I think he was more than a mid-card wrestler, and then other times he'd be a mid-card wrestler. You talk about a guy who would be considered the game of pro wrestling would be him because he could do it all. He could put somebody over. He could go over.
Yeah. Much like the Brooklyn Brawler,
absolutely. I met that same weekend. I had a conversation with Jimmy Hart, and he said they always ask him who the two best wrestlers he is in his opinion. He always says, well, it's the Brooklyn Brawler and Barry Horowitz. He goes, those people, or he called him Lombardi and Barry Horowitz.
Right.
Most people don't know who they are. He says, but these are the guys that made Hulk Hogan, and champion.
Exactly. Exactly. Originally for today's show, in other words, so there really you don't know any archives of Mike Lano's shows like of his.
Yeah, that Evan. There is a radio show. I did his show. Back in 2008. I did. It was a call-in format, and it was on a Sunday, and I saw it's on Obsessed with Wrestling.
Evan Ginsberg.
It's there, and I think it's archived in a database out there. You know, if you put in probably Michael Anno Wrestling and maybe my name, that one will pop up.
Tino Anglade. Okay, cool. I'm trying to get Evan Ginsberg to come on my podcast too. I sent him a message. I haven't heard back.
He was one of the producers of the movie The Wrestler, right?
Right. Oh yeah. There's a great picture of him and Mickey Rourke together. But I guess we could morph into the original topic. I wanted colorful characters of the 80s and 90s in the WWF. But, you know, I mean, LA wrestling, there's still so much to talk about. You know, I guess we were both blessed because big-time wrestling with Roy Shires here in the Bay Area is revered and loved.
You had what we had. You had the exact same territory like we had. We shared a lot of the same stars. It was still the territory days.
Yes.
The kayfabe was still in existence.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, you know, the last time you were on, I might have talked about it. How I went to, well, maybe it was with someone else. But anyway, I had my dad let me cut school on Thursdays for like a whole month, 4 Thursdays, because the restaurant here in San Francisco, Original Joe's, after the TV tapings for Big Time Wrestling, they'd come down to San Francisco from out of Oakland, wherever. Rock Rims would know the whole. Rock Rims knows everything, but he would know the TV schedule, why they were coming to San Francisco on a Thursday. But the wrestlers would eat at Original Joe's at Turk and Taylor Street here in San Francisco.
Oh, so you'd go and spy on them?
Well, no, see, I wanted to meet Andre the Giant so bad and Pat Patterson, because when Andre would come to the Bay Area, because they both spoke French, Andre would demand that Patterson would be with him.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it just so happened, so after the third Thursday, Patterson and Andre the Giant come into Original Joe's, and here, you know, I'm of short stature. You met me, I'm 5'6". Then I was 5'3", 11-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid. And here comes Andre the Giant through the door. He had to duck through the door. But anyway, what I remember is him sitting at the last seat at the counter, and they had the janitor or maintenance guy come and unbolt the seat next to him.
Wow.
So, and then Patterson sat there, and still it didn't even look like the seat was gone.
Did you approach them?
Oh, hell yeah. I tried to, but Patterson was like, no, leave Andre alone, you know, in his accent. And he goes, after we're done, you come up, you know. And so I was too scared to get Andre's autograph. Such a big mistake, but he shook my hand, and my hand, you know, of course, come on, my hand disappeared in his hand.
Wow.
And I asked
that's big time.
I asked Patterson for Pat's autograph, and he autographed my hat, which I still have somewhere. But I should have got Andre's autograph. But Andre was just, you know, I'd have to say he was in a world of his own. It was in a bad part of town, the Tenderloin. I don't know if you know anything about the Bay Area or San Francisco, but at the time, that's when the Tenderloin was really going downhill to what it is now. So they were in and out. The limousine was out in front waiting. So, yeah, that was my thing with Andre the Giant. And, man, could that guy eat, Tino? Just eat and eat and eat and eat.
I've heard stories, you know, and he could drink really good, really alcohol.
Well, you know, and then the next time I went to Joe's, it was during the summer, and I went there on my own just out of guessing maybe the wrestlers will come in, and Patterson came in. This was a couple of years later. I'm like 13 or 14 at this time. It was during the time when he was fighting Alexis Smirnoff here in the Bay Area.
Right.
And they had a Russian chain match, and it was that week. I'm sure Rock Rims would even, you know the date right offhand. Anyway, but which is great. He again autographed the same hat and autographed over his old autograph, which he liked. He goes,
wow, are you serious?
Yeah, and he goes, no one's ever asked me to do that, you know. And one of the waiters, you know, the waiter's long past, but the waiter said, tell Freddie how you autographed Rosemary's boob or something, whatever. I don't remember the woman's name, But Patterson, the boy don't want to hear that. And I go, yeah, I do, And Patterson, I autographed her tit, just like that,
Wow.
And I, Patterson at the time, kayfabe was so strong, only certain people knew, that he was, he was gay.
Right.
Which even if I knew at the time, I wouldn't care. But he used to live down in the avenues in the Sunset District here.
Oh, so he actually lived up in San Francisco.
He lived here for a while, definitely. Him and his longtime husband or boyfriend. And then they moved, I think, to Hayward, and then they moved to Florida once he left the area. But back to you, we were blessed. I mean, I'm sure you have stories of running into the wrestlers in L.A. back then.
Well, I was never, I was never that bold to, jump on a bus and to go, find them.
Really?
But I heard stories later on, like Miguel Alonso was telling me a story that on Wednesday nights that a lot of the wrestlers would meet in Hollywood at the Spaghetti Factory.
Wow.
With, Cesar Romero would show up, and there would
the Joker
that were fans that would hang out. And, of course, had I known that as a 12-year-old kid, I would have probably tried to find a way to get down there on Wednesday.
Well, I mean, now that they've both passed, and again, I still have a problem with Roddy passing. I was talking to...
It's still a shocker. I just saw a TMZ
with the
interview with Ariel.
Go ahead.
And she said, yeah, my dad sings. Well, he did sing, and she caught herself, and she got choked up because she's working on a record, an album right now.
Right. She's the one that's taken it to heart. That's being the most public with her grief.
Yeah, and that's really cool because
I so have so much respect for her for that.
Yeah, it's just really neat to see her and Kitty and Colt, the stuff they put on Twitter.
Right. Yes, I see it.
The memories. I don't even know if they know how important that is to the fans, for the people that really admire them.
I think Kitty does, and I think she's told the kids. I mean, I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth. They're all individuals, but I take my hat off to that family. So much class. I mean, they could go one of two ways, One, they could just disappear, and stay out of the limelight, or they could go the opposite route like Kitty's doing and staying in the limelight, keeping his name out there and showing, hey, this is what Roddy would have wanted us to do. And the love of that family is so strong, and they'll be fine. They'll get past it and be stronger for it.
Yeah, I think, we never know what the future holds, but, I think Colt's going to have a really good career in pro wrestling if he wants to do that.
I know he just got married.
I know Ariel's going to do well as an actress and as a vocalist now that she's doing a record. It's really cool because she said that it's going to be an indie alternative album with hints of an 80s sound. And oh my gosh, 80s was the best era of music.
Oh, definitely. And you are an aficionado of music.
After Behind the 60s, I think the 80s just put out so many incredible, and even from your area, from the Bay Area.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, sure, we can go into that at another time. But, yeah, I have so much respect for Ariel. And it's.
And they're strong. They're really a strong family.
Yes. Oh, my God. You were there that night of the memorial. I mean, they weren't hiding.
No.
And
I think Roddy... It's real interesting because with Roddy, being a runaway at 15 and stuff, and he really became this incredible father and husband that, where did he learn all that from? I mean...
every time I met him, he was so graceful, and I've been doing a lot of, soul searching and everything because, when a hero dies and, I can admit I fall into depression a lot. And what would get me out of depression, and still does, is watching Roddy from the days you first caught on to him was from the L.A. era and afterwards, his wise-assness, and knowing that this man was so sincere on one hand, and then on the other hand could just morph into the world's most wise-ass, despicable person. It just always, to this day, still brings me out of his depressive state. And I would, that's just how good he was.
Yeah,
you know that.
I think LA was really where he grew and learned. You know, because I don't know if he knew this or if anybody knew the future, but just a few years after that, he'd be thrown in the national spotlight on the Superstation. You know.
Oh yeah, with Gordon Soley, and he wasn't Coach.
Yeah, he was he was like right on the cusp of becoming this big national and international star. But we got to, in LA, we got to see him work with Chavo Sr. And Chavo Sr. being older than him really helped him. They were very close, and he really taught him a lot about pro wrestling.
Oh my God! I mean, he went. He first showed up and had that altercation. Let's see how good my knowledge is. He had the altercation with Gory.
Correct. It was a science. It was a.
Go ahead. I love it. Go ahead. I know exactly what you're going to say, but I love hearing it.
Well, he wrestled a scientific match, and I think then he got dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just took off from there. I mean, week after week after week after week. I would think more of watching Roddy on Wednesday nights on the Spanish Network than I would Roy Shires wrestling. And even though we had, a young Lonnie Main, Ray Stevens was in and out, Patterson, blah, 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 Roddy on Wednesday nights, what would he do? And the way Miguel Alonso, even though I didn't understand a word in Spanish, I'm telling you, Tino, after 2 weeks of watching the wrestling in Spanish, I knew exactly what Miguel was saying when he was talking about Roddy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, Roddy was this such a dirty heel. And I didn't know this until I heard his podcast that he did with Chavo Jr. that Piper was actually a chicken heel.
Yeah, of course he
knew when to, he would get in his licks as a tough guy, but he knew when to run.
Yeah.
And there's a current world champion today that they've also booked that way, Seth Rollins. He's a chicken.
Oh, I hate him so much, only for one reason, and that's because he's too much like Roddy. It's too much like Roddy.
The thing is, with him is what Seth I don't think has that Roddy has. Seth is a really strong wrestler and worker in the ring, but he doesn't have the personality and he doesn't have the mic skills at the level that Roddy
does. No one does. I think there's only a couple wrestlers offhand that I could name. I know my other co-host Bob from Bob's Radio Cafeteria. We don't agree on this, but there's nobody like Roddy. I mean, he'll throw up a couple names. I think there's only one that ever reminded me of Roddy, and that was CM Punk, who approached that level of wise.
Yeah, no. CM Punk he definitely has an it factor that there's this it factor that some guys have and just some guys don't, and the guys that don't, they have like Paul Heyman as their spokesperson.
Yeah. Well, Roddy. I mean, look, we were blessed by seeing Roddy back then. And what a lot of people don't know, he was fired a lot of times. Roddy used to give this.
Roddy got fired down here in L.A.?
Oh, no, not L.A., but I should say after L.A. And in between those times, Ole fired him once for sure. He'd go to Puerto Rico. He'd go with Flair other places, Japan. Now, he said he was only in Japan once, but I thought he was there twice.
But, I know that I saw the Fujinami match with the Canadian. That was the Olympic.
Yeah, okay, that was at the Olympic. Now, I seen results posted somewhere that he did go to Japan. But, he did go to the island with Carlos Colon, San Juan or Puerto Rico.
Yeah, well, and also in the 80s he did. Him and Slaughter went down there. And there's some footage of him. Back in the 80s, it was a weird time because Bruiser Brody lost his life over there.
Right.
But they would, I think they would. It was like kind of crazy. I guess like it was like a really scary environment. So they fly in and then they like run out of the baseball field stadium where they would wrestle. They would try to get out before the crowd was released because they were really afraid of the fans.
Well, I'm trying to look for this interview that he did about Carlos Colon. You could YouTube it.
Okay.
I thought I had it, but it's right after he gets fired from Ole Anderson, and Georgia Championship Wrestling.
From was it Crockett or was it Mid-Atlantic?
I think it was whatever Ole was running in booking, whatever that was. Ole let him go.
Crockett, where Piper came in as Gordon Soley's sidekick.
I'm trying
and he was
to
also
think.
in Mid-Atlantic, where it was about the same period as like that.
Okay, he was fired from Georgia Championship Wrestling when he was the co-host when he got really popular after the Buzz Sawyer run by Ole. So it was right after that Flair got him booked to fight Carlos Colon. And the interview he does with Carlos Colon is so racist. He even tries to talk like a Mexican. So
wow. And see, you know why Piper? The skill Piper had was to fill those arenas and those stadiums. And a lot of times people wanted to show up to see Piper get his.
Well, of course. I thought I had that. Let me walk across the room here on my iPod. Maybe I have it. It would be a nice thing to listen to. But yeah, I mean, he was, I really would like to talk to somebody somebody that really knows about why he was fired. Maybe you do. I never found out.
There's just so much, it's just like any other business. It's just politics. If somebody has it out for you, you're never, unfortunately, bookers, sometimes hold all the keys, and, I'm just glad I'm not in that profession. I'm glad that's not my work environment because I've seen how brutal it is, even at the indie level, and I can imagine how much it is, how it is at a higher level of, some of the bigger companies.
Gotcha. Well, you know what? I found that interview, so let's go to it. Let me put it on here. It's Roddy talking about his fight with Carlos Colon.
Carlos Colon, grande world champion. Invader. Puerto Rico, huh? Don't drink the water. Puerto Rico, huh? All the wonderful geeks there in Puerto Rico, huh? I have here from one of the fine people in Puerto Rico, one of the wrestling fans, huh? Reminds me of Carlos Colon, huh? Reminds me of the great Invader. We be friends of yours, Invader? You kidding me? World champion. Roddy Piper, world champion. Roddy Piper, Tonga, together. I have never seen Big Ten like you, Colon, come from, huh? That is nice little heart you wear in the Big Ten. And I look, I say, Colon, Invader, very much look like. And I listen. I say, hey, Carlos. And I do feel it. I say, Carlos, Invader. You are. I sit here and I laugh. Tag team championship. But I am embarrassed for you. Understand?
So see, you can hear he's like.
Yeah, no. So now I understand where the pig hat came from.
Oh, well, the pig hat, I know where that came from.
Him and his father were wearing pig hats in his book.
That came from, they used to call Ole Anderson a pig.
Oh.
Yeah, that came from that, so that morphed into that. But you can hear in Roddy's voice that phony accent, and man, you got to know there was some heat at that arena.
Right. And
got to know that.
Piper, remember in L.A., going, probably 5-6 years earlier than that promo, it was on the Spanish network on Wednesday night. The crowd was mainly Latino.
Uh-huh.
Chavo, who was the utmost over babyface, Chavo Sr., was from El Paso, Texas, of Latino ancestry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he was the booker. He was the heartthrob.
So when, he would, him and Piper, there was that racial component there. Was this white guy and this Latino, and the crowd was predominantly Latino, so that's why Chavo was the babyface that was very over. I could never imagine Chavo Guerrero Sr. being a heel. he was just so over. Mondo the same way, Gory the same way.
Well, for Bill Watts, when they came in as a tag team, the Guerrero brothers were heels for a while.
Wow.
It's on YouTube.
You know who's a really good heel is Chavo Jr. He does the heels very well.
My God, McMahon. We won't get into it.
Oh no,
Chavo is.
We want Chavo Jr. right where he's at Lucha Underground. Trust me.
I hope he stays there. I mean, McMahon robbed him of Alberto Del Rio.
They're starting their new season next month. I'm going to be at the first night of taping.
Oh my God, are you for real?
Yes, on November 14th, and they got a second season. Chavo's one of the creative bookers involved. That's why I like the product so much, because it's so reminiscent of Gory and
are you lucky?
His dad's booking style. It's in their blood,
Oh man, Gordman and Goliath. We won't even get. We'll save those two for another show.
Wow, those, yeah. What a heel. What such an incredible heel tag team, because they never said they were from.
We're from New Mexico. We're not from Mexico. We're from New Mexico.
Right, and then he would speak Spanish and insult the audience,
Oh, awesome. Just awesome, and a lot of people don't know. True Roddy Piper fans know that Gordman managed Roddy.
The Canadian.
That's right. I love the Canadian. I wanted a mask so much.
One interview where Gordman's talking in Spanish, or no, he's going back and forth, and all you hear Piper say, "Si, maestro."
Yeah, that's on YouTube. And then there's another one where all he does is woo, like Ric Flair. Like woo.
Right.
And I mean, we're both blessed. I mean, that's one good thing. And again, I'm so glad I met you.
Black Gordman was another character that just, he was just such a good heel,
Oh, God, him and Goliath. I mean, we also got the tapes of California Championship Wrestling with the end of Goliath's career. He was just a bleeder.
Tony Rocco also wrestled there.
Yeah. Lamone. I can't pronounce the promoter's name that did it. Tony Lamone or.
Okay, I know Carl Lauer was involved.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one. And they had the most weirdest ring announcer.
Well, it was an interesting product. It was trying to keep. To me, WWE had just gotten really huge. Hulk Hogan's on the cover of Sports Illustrated in 1985.
Right.
It's all legit now. Wrestling's accepted as a sport.
Yep.
In the world. And I think that with Carl Lauer and Championship Wrestling, they were trying to do a territorial kind of.
Yeah, they were, and their thing was, we could do a whole show on them. Their thing was they would announce wrestlers coming in that would never come in, but they'd announce Andre the Giant, he never came. They announced Bruiser Brody, he never came. But they did announce, Rocky Johnson and Superfly Snuka, who came in.
Who did come in, correct.
Right, they came in. And it was a gore fest. Every match would end up with one or two wrestlers bleeding. They also had Wild Man Jack Armstrong.
Yeah, Jack Armstrong.
And they had another guy who was a steroid guy that died.
They had Steve Strong, wasn't he?
Yeah, they had Steve Strong, who was managed by John Tolos.
Right,
And who was the guy? Ripper something. Not Ripper Collins.
It was Pete Collins was a manager.
Well, Pete Collins, but there was also a guy named Ripper Savage.
Yes, Ripper Savage, right.
And he, I don't know why he never caught on with any other federation. I guess he was too much of a steroid freak, but he was out there, Yeah, it was great. It was a great. I loved that, and it was funny because up here on the West, in the Bay Area, they showed the same tape for and I shit you not, for 7 or 8 weeks in a row.
The same broadcast.
The same broadcast.
Wow.
And it was I forgot some knockoff Strongbow. It was Strongbow's kid.
Yeah, there was another Indian wrestler, a Native American wrestler.
Right.
He was a something Strongbow,
Yeah. Yeah, and he would bleed every week. And then they had was sad. To me, it was sad. An aging, over the hill, elderly Toru Tanaka.
Yeah, and I also, did they bring Wahoo McDaniels in?
You know what, that I don't know. I'd love to talk to somebody else. I love talking to you, but I'd like to find somebody else that knows as much as that.
There's also a promotion that I confused with California Championship Wrestling. It was a promotion out of Las Vegas at the same time at the Showboat, and I think that might have been part of AWA.
Oh yeah, it was. And in the middle of the ring, they had some name on the ring, right?
Yeah, and I can't, and but a lot of times I would see a lot of our guys at that Vegas show.
Right, as jobbers and stuff.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. Now, it wasn't Continental. It was something like that. Yeah. We were so lucky back then because almost every weekend you could catch 3 or 4 different federations, maybe 5 even, and the AWA, NWA. California Championship Wrestling.
On TV, the Argentinian show.
I was going to bring that up, Val. Oh, God.
I did not like that product. It was...
it was crazy. Pepino.
The characters were it was too much like
it was a circus.
Like a Saturday morning kids show.
Well, that's what there's a whole genre on that. I'm not genre. What am I saying? There's a huge documentary it's in Spanish. It's about 15 minutes, and Val Drummond, I think that's the wrestler's name. He's one of my friends on Facebook. He's an expert on it.
Yeah. It was something
Titans of the Ring. Yeah, Titans of the Ring. And
Titans of the right. And the characters were just
La Momia.
Yeah, they were like we had the monster at the end of the LaBelle promotion. Which
right. Now that was right before I started watching it. But that man was a genius. He was Vince McMahon before Vince McMahon. And I'm willing to bet that McMahon stole stuff from him.
They were just too over the top.
Yeah, well, they had lavish entrances like McMahon.
And a lot of people wore wrestling gear. They wore like suits.
Yeah. They had they had their own record album. They had their own costumes that they would sell to the kids. He marketed things just like McMahon did. Oh, there's tons of stuff available from them still on eBay.
Wow.
Not tons, but if you go and look into it, you'll find stuff. There's a lot of film on YouTube about it. And Val Drummond would be one to talk to. He loves it.
Yeah, the UHF station, Channel 22 in LA, and we would get it there. We'd also get on Channel 22 Beauty Pair and Black Pair, which was the Japanese female wrestlers.
Wow, we never had that here.
Yeah, and we so I got to see Beauty Pair, which were like teen idol singers and then wrestlers. It was quite interesting. And that was probably late 70s, like 79, when we got those programs airing in LA.
Wow. Well, what did we get? Okay, there was a league that Woody Farmer, I don't know if you ever heard of him, old time.
I've heard of him, and I can't picture him.
Well, he was a strong man. He had the strong man gimmick, but I know his kid wrestles, I think, under another name now, but in independent circuit. But they put on a wrestling promotion called Bay Area Wrestling, and you'll never guess who wrestled his first match on television, a televised match for them. You'll never guess.
Bay Area, and was he slated from Northern California?
You know what? I don't remember. Alan Bolte, I think, did some ring announcing. Well, I'm going to have Alan Bolte, the West Coast wrestling announcer for Shires. He's coming on the next show. I'll ask him. But I forgot where they promoted him from, and it was the most ridiculous canned music ever. Chris Jericho.
Are you serious?
It's on YouTube. Bay Area Wrestling, Chris Jericho. And he's so young. He's like a surfer dude. Really young, like 19, 18 years old.
And he was, his dad's a famous Canadian hockey player.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had that.
Because I first saw Chris Jericho wrestling Lucha Libre.
Wow. Now that I did see. Now we had Lucha Libre, and I got screwed over here. We had the Lucha Libre show when Jake the Snake Roberts went down there.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they stopped it. He showed up for one show, and then the show was discontinued here.
But I don't think he ever got in the ring. He just kind of worked like as a second ringside, right?
I don't know. I never found out. The next week the show was off the air.
Where he shows up and everybody's shocked he's ringside and he kind of interferes.
I thought he did wrestle one match though. I really thought he did. And then we touched base on the Argentine wrestling, which is really something to look up if you haven't. There's some footage, and like I said, that promoter, he had half blonde hair, half black hair, and he booked himself constantly against La Mumia. And
the Mummy, right?
The Mummy's entrance was awesome. Now, if you compare the Mummy's entrance to the Undertaker's entrance, I'm telling you, McMahon, that's where McMahon got a lot of his ideas.
Interesting. Wow.
And so let's morph into what I actually wanted you on the show for. And I don't think you'll ever come on the show without us talking about Shires or LaBelle Wrestling, which is great. I can do it for 5 hours.
Well, because those guys set the standard for
it. One last thing. I know I touch upon it every show with you. You must remember in 76, Jimmy Lennon coming to the ring saying, "We're now going to wrestle under the bicentennial rules."
Well, see, I remember it was 77 when I became a real mark. But I remember in like mid-70s, so it was 76. I remember the programs from that. I've seen them.
Well, Rock would know what those bicentennial rules were.
I was switching channels and I saw Kenji Shibuya all bloody.
Kenji Shibuya, really? You sure? Wow.
Promo, and it scared me, so I changed the channel really quick.
Yeah, he was a mainstay up here. He was, oh my God. And he never was a good guy up here. He was a bad guy his whole career up here for Shires.
And he was a heel down here too, and he had color, and they're interviewing him, and he's speaking in English, and I was like, ooh, I got scared, as I'm 13.
Well, you guys had two of the most famous angles. One was Tolos throwing the morsel powder into Freddie Blassie's eye.
Yeah, that angle lasted a year.
Yeah, that angle lasted a year. And then the other one involved Tolos and Victor Rivera, where they actually brought the cameras backstage and had Dr. Bernard Schwartz stitching Victor Rivera up.
Believe it or not, he was a legit doctor because a friend of mine, he was the doctor when a friend of mine's uncle was born.
Gotcha. This is great. We're really getting into it.
He was a real MD, and he was a
boxing cutman, a corner man.
Right.
Yeah, so, maybe we won't get into WWE.
Got cracked over Victor Rivera's head. Is that the back?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was. I remember someone writing about that on one of, I don't know if it was Facebook or if it was a blog about when they did that angle because they had to break the wood first and reset it.
Right.
But they showed him stitching him up afterwards. So
yeah, they had it in Bill Apter Wrestling Magazine, whatever, The Wrestler or whatever.
Dr. Schwartz was really suturing him. That's probably the earliest suturing job I've ever seen in wrestling.
We touched upon some really interesting, deep into wrestling, which I hope somebody out there besides you and me appreciates. I'll go back to it one last time. Vince McMahon definitely stole most of his ideas from that Argentina promotion. You got the La Mumia, you got the Undertaker, you got the music, WWF music, you got the Argentina music. And the reason I'm saying it, if you remember, the music would go on and on and on. Even once the wrestler got in the ring and the bell would ring, then the music would stop. But they had colorful characters. WWF had colorful characters. We will morph into that if you don't mind. I enjoyed the WWF characters.
Look at the song Land of a Thousand Dances.
Oh, that's awesome. I still listen to that to this day.
The whole parade of characters.
Yeah.
Even Vince McMahon's in it.
Yeah, even Vince McMahon and George the Animal Steele, even Greg the Hammer Valentine.
They're all in character,
Yeah.
And
what was you? We both love Roddy. let's forget about Roddy.
That's hard to do.
They're very hard to do. It's almost blasphemy for me to say that. What was your favorite character from the 80s or 90s of WWF? You gotta have one. Come on,
I hate to say it, but Roddy Piper's always been.
Okay. Forget about Roddy. That's both our favorites.
Who would be my second one?
Yeah, who would be your second?
I'm not a big Undertaker fan, but I respect a lot that he did. Not Jake. Oh gosh, there was a far gap between Roddy and my second.
Well, of course. I mean, let me name some names and maybe it will remind you because they're easy to forget nowadays. But I love the Doctor of Style, Slick, and whoever he managed.
Oh, Slick, yeah, he managed one-man gang.
As the African Dream, Akeem.
Yeah, I would have to say, Slick was a great manager. I absolutely loved his.
Earl Skakel and I so agree, and I'm so jealous of Earl because he has a T-shirt, that has the African, the one-man gang and the big boss man saying, "Don't forget," it has a thing of 9/11 in the background. It's such a cool shirt. I would love that shirt. But I loved the one-man gang when he came into, World Wrestling Federation.
Well, it's interesting because, Crockett, he'd be one character.
Right.
And then he'd come to Vince, and then they would.
He morphed. And if you ever saw him live back then, I mean, we had... we were lucky. They did a lot of TV tapings here in the Bay Area. They do like 2, sometimes 3 a year, whether it would be Sacramento, San Jose, or San Francisco, or Oakland. And I would go to all of them, all 4 of those cities. And I saw all of those characters, and it was so fun. Akeem was so good live. He, non-televised matches. He'd actually fart in the ring. And you could hear it. It was, I don't know how he did it, without crapping his pants. But, they had Tugboat. They had Earthquake. They had characters that you could just lose yourself into.
Yeah, they had a Kimchi with...
Kamala. Well, that wasn't Vince's idea. Kamala was Jerry Lawler's.
Correct.
Yeah.
Kamala came in already as the Ugandan Giant.
Right.
But I really liked the Kimchi gimmick.
Oh, yeah.
Who I really liked at that time? I liked Ted DiBiase.
Oh, the $1 Million Man, yeah.
Because I remember him being
with Virgil.
babyface in Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Right.
All of a sudden, he's this rich millionaire, and he's a heel with Virgil.
Oh, God, and I hated Virgil. I hated the $1 Million Man. The one vigilette that they did that sticks in my mind, every week they'd have some little thing with the $1 Million. Let's go to the $1 Million Man, and he's out on the street, and they had this little boy, bouncing a basketball, and he goes, "You can bounce a basketball 10 times, you'll get this $100 bill."
The ball out of that kid, yeah.
Yeah, and at bounce number 10, Virgil kicks the ball, or $1 Million Man kicks the ball, and the look on the little boy's face.
Oh, that was legit. That was cute. The kid really was crying. Yeah.
Yeah, the kid was crying, and come to find out, years and years later, at a meet and greet, the $1 Million Man gave a little speech, a little talk afterwards that I saw on YouTube, and he goes, it was one of the employees' kids, and they didn't let on to him. He thought he was going to get the $100 bill.
Wow.
And so they ended up giving it to him after the camera shut down.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. The $1 Million Man, his laugh, the song, we were, as much as I hate to admit it, I love the 80s and early 90s of the characters.
Well, I liked it, I liked it up through, 89, 90. And then I just kind of fell out of it.
Oh, yeah, I fell out of it and shifted to WCW. I would go wherever Roddy was.
I got into WCW in the late 90s, 97.
Right, yeah.
When Hogan and NWO, and I have to give props to Terry Taylor, his concept of that NWO faction, that was his idea.
Well, that's not what I heard. I heard different. I don't mean to correct you. I heard that Bischoff stole it from Japan.
They blame Bischoff. They blame Bischoff for everything, and he takes credit for everything. So,
well, I heard he got it from New Japan.
my understanding is Terry Taylor was one of the creative bookers. He came up with the concept of the NWO.
Gotcha. Hey, you know what?
Bischoff was still an announcer or something for AEW. He was just some announcer. I mean, he really.
Oh yeah, he was what, a jabroni. I mean, he started in AWA as an announcer.
Where he really shined was that spokesperson with Hogan for NWO. Bischoff is just incredible on the mic. What an incredible heel that guy was.
Well, you know what? Anybody could be a heel if you're the boss. I think.
Well, yeah, that I look at what happened when I don't know if he destroyed WCW or who was. I don't think you can blame just one person. Then I heard the stories about when he went into TNA and him and Hogan kind of took over.
Let's not down the show. Come on, we're having a good time.
Right.
But you're right.
I just don't think, I don't think one man could be responsible for destroying a company like a WCW.
Well, between him and Vince Russo,
it was just a bunch of different events that led to the downfall.
Well, yeah, no, you and I see eye to eye on that. With me, I go and watch whatever Piper was in. So if he's
that was the same thing with me. And in the late 90s, he was in WCW, so I was watching WCW.
Right, same here.
When Colt was a little boy in the ring.
And he's in the ring, yeah.
Hogan comes in and starts punking Piper, interrupting his time with his son in the ring, and he's like, no, Terry, don't. No, Terry.
Yeah, I remember that. Back then, do you remember the wrestling hotlines you could call for whatever, a minute, $10 or...
Well, here we had a free one. We had a guy that
wow!
advertised in the Penny Saver, and he was, they called him 5-0.
How did he get his information?
You would just listen to a recording. He would just talk about, like, the last pay-per-view that...
Oh, okay. Well, the reason why I'm asking is at the time, I actually got fired from a couple jobs. I won't go into it, which actually probably is 4 or 5 jobs I actually got fired in my life from because of wrestling.
Wow.
But what I would do is burn up the phones for these wrestling hotlines and then get caught and get fired. But,
because they were charging.
Yeah, what I finally came up with was I saw a telephone repair guy once while I was skateboarding. Back then, remember, I'm in my early 20s, okay, not now. So I'm skateboarding around town, and I saw this repair guy while I was waiting for the bus on my skateboard, hook up just a phone with 2 wires, 2 alligator clips. And so I asked him, I go, wow, you could do that anywhere? And he goes, yeah, and he showed me. And I go, oh, I'm going to make one myself and find a place where I could go and just, go to an apartment house and, go downstairs in the basement because all the phone junctions were in the basement.
And just use up their line.
And I did. And so I would always be in the know about what was happening. I phoned Mean Gene hotline, and there was Coach Kurt.
Oh, that's right, because I remember there were sponsored ones on WWE, and they ask your parents.
Right. And I would phone those religiously, constantly, and I never got caught because I changed apartment buildings, and I never got caught.
Wow.
And so I would always know where Roddy was going to turn up a week before or what was happening. And, I was Mr. Popular when it came to pro wrestling.
Now we have...
Right. It was the Internet before the Internet,
Right.
Well, we're coming down to our last 5 minutes. I would, I guess I should just ask you, why don't you just come on all the time, be one of the 2 co-hosts? Cause,
hey, I love talking wrestling.
Great.
Wrestling is my biggest form of entertainment.
Oh, God bless you. Same here. And I not counting jobs that I've lost because of pro wrestling, I've lost 2 relationships.
Wow.
The women were like, you're into wrestling too much. Well, if you don't appreciate what I love, then you don't love me. Goodbye.
You know what's nice about this day and age is I don't have to defend wrestling to people.
Yes, we don't anymore, do we? We don't.
When I was a lot younger, that's fake. I'll take anybody who doesn't think these guys, are hard-working athletes, I'll take them to a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla show, and we'll go sit there.
Yeah. Yes. I totally agree with you. I got to thank you for sending me. You did send me a clip, and I watched it, and it's just too bad they don't have the money behind them, because that's some really, real hard-hitting wrestling.
Yeah, they put on excellent shows. They work stiff a lot.
Yes. God, that scares me.
I first saw Seth Rollins,
Yes.
I first saw him at PWG shows. Chris Hero, Claudio Castagnoli, which is now Cesaro.
Which they need to push. But
American Dragon, who is now Daniel Bryan.
Right, which they need to bring back
I saw them all, 10 years ago. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels. I saw all these guys, in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla.
Right.
And it's so cool because the venue they do it in Reseda, no matter where you sit, it's incredible.
God, I'm definitely going to come down to L.A. sometime before January. We'll definitely
go to a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla show and probably go to Lucha Underground taping.
Oh, my God. That's a date. Well, Tino, I got to sign off here because I only do my show in increments of an hour. This hour has gone so fast. I'll definitely have you back on. But have you come up with your favorite number 2 wrestler from the WWE days of the 80s and 90s?
I would have to say the $1 Million Man.
Gotcha. So Macho Man isn't up there?
Macho Man was a little
snap into a Slim Jim.
over the top for me. He definitely was a trendsetter. He did something different that I saw wrestlers later on gravitate, and I see Macho Man in some wrestlers. There's another guy from that time, Kurt Hennig.
Oh, awesome, Mr. Perfect.
Who could sell and make anybody. I mean, the guy was great at selling. He can make anybody look good. He can make you and I look good.
I've been blessed. I've seen 4 probably of the greatest wrestlers of that type of being able to sell and make a star out of anybody. Piper, Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, and Macho Man all wrestle each other live. I've seen the whole mix.
Wow.
I'm blessed. With that, Tino, I want to thank you. Definitely, I will have you on in the next couple weeks.
Nice.
And I need a favor. This time you come on DERFCAST. You pick a topic. Surprise me.
Okay. I'll think about it. Give me a week or 2 to
you take as long as you want. I've been talking to Tino Anglade. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I have a horrible name problem. But thank you so much for coming on DERFCAST. And the usual, pass the show on and, post it. I'll post it. And definitely I'll have you on again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll talk. Thanks, guy. And that about does it for DERFCAST. And stay tuned for the next coming DERFCAST. We're going to have Alan Volke, West Coast Wrestling legend announcer, former manager of Judo Gene LaBelle and the late Roddy Piper, Noel Kim, Bob from Bob's Radio Cafeteria will come on, and who knows what surprises will come. Thank you, and remember, stand up to bullies. It's that easy. You can go to all the archives of DERFCAST on Facebook. Just type in DERFCAST or go to SoundCloud.com. Type in DERFCAST at SoundCloud.com.